Imagine waking up one morning, only to find that the house across the street, the one you saw just last night, has completely disappeared. Not abandoned, not destroyed, gone, as if it never existed. In a quiet Nigerian village, people often spoke about a certain mud brick house that stood on the edge of the forest. Everyone avoided it because no matter who moved in, they would leave within weeks. Strange noises, flickering lanterns, whispers in the dark. It was cursed, they said, but one family dared to stay. A father, his wife, and 2 children moved into the house after falling on hard times. At first, things were quiet. The family went about their lives, ignoring the villagers' warnings. But then, the children began complaining of scratching on the walls at night, claws dragging slowly, like something was inside, trying to escape. The mother grew pale and silent, claiming she often saw eyes staring from the corners, watching her cook, watching her sleep. One night, the father awoke to a strange humming sound. Following it, he opened the door to his children's room and froze. Both children were sitting upright on their beds, their mouths moving, but the voices weren't theirs. Deep, guttural chants spilled out, like a language older than the earth. He rushed them out of the house. They fled into the night, back to the village. The next morning, the villagers gathered their courage and followed the family back to the edge of the forest. But the cursed house was gone, not broken down, not burnt, not even ruins. The ground where it once stood was flat, covered in thick and touched grass. The father swore he had lived there. The villagers swore they had seen the family move in, but there was no trace, no foundation stones, no belongings, nothing. And from that day on, the family was never the same. The children would sometimes wake at night, chanting the same guttural language. The mother never spoke of the house again, and the father, he drank himself into silence. Some say the house wasn't built on earth at all, but on a doorway to another realm. It appears when it wants, and disappears when it's done feeding. So tonight, if you look out your window and see a house where there wasn't one yesterday, don't stare too long, because when the house vanishes again, it might just take you with it. There are hotels across America where people check in, but never leave alive. This is the true story of one such room, hidden in plain sight, where guests vanish without a trace. In the 1970s, a small roadside motel in Nevada gained an unsettling reputation. It looked ordinary from the outside: flickering neon sign, a row of doors, the smell of cheap coffee in the lobby. But there was one room, room 6, that terrified even the staff. The owner never listed it. No clerk ever offered it. But when the motel was overbooked, desperate travelers were sometimes given the key. Most never stayed the whole night. One truck driver checked in after midnight. Hours later, another guest heard a blood-curdling scream, then silence. When staff entered in the morning, the bed was made, the man's belongings still in the room, but he was gone. No sign of struggle, no broken lock, just gone. Over the next decade, room 6 swallowed more victims: a young couple, a salesman, even a group of college kids. Always the same pattern. They'd fall asleep and vanish. When the motel eventually closed, investigators tore down the walls. What they found made even hardened officers walk out in silence. Behind the wallpaper, in long hidden passages, were dozens of handprints burned into the wood, as if people had tried clawing their way out, screaming without sound. But the strangest part, the room was smaller on the inside than it should have been. Entire feet of space were missing, like the walls were swallowing the room whole. Locals whispered that room 6 was built on a native burial ground. Others swore the original owner made a pact with something inhuman, feeding its souls to keep the motel alive. Today, the motel is gone, bulldozed into the desert sand. But truckers still say that on lonely nights, they see a flickering neon sign in the distance. Some even swear they pulled in, exhausted, only to blink and find themselves on an empty highway. The motel vanished into thin air. So, the next time you're on a road trip through the American desert, and you see a cheap motel with a glowing sign, ask yourself, would you dare check in? Because some rooms don't let you check out. In Mexico, legends aren't just stories told to scare children, they're warnings. And one of the most feared is the tale of El Camión de la Muerte, the death bus. They say it appears only after midnight on long and lonely highways. At first, it looks like any ordinary late-night bus. The lights flicker, the engine hums, the doors open with a hiss. But passengers who step inside are never seen again. The earliest known story dates back to the late 1970s. A group of factory workers in Puebla finished their shifts and boarded a bus heading to Mexico City. Witnesses said the bus left the station, but it never arrived at its destination. Entire families vanished overnight. Authorities searched the route for weeks, but no wreckage was found. The bus had simply disappeared. Over time, people whispered that it wasn't an accident. The workers had boarded El Camión de la Muerte. In the late 1990s, a similar case resurfaced. A man named Carlos and 4 of his friends caught a nearly empty bus late one Friday night. At first, everything seemed normal, but as they drove deeper into the countryside, the air grew icy cold. Carlos later told his cousin that he could see his breath in the darkness. Even though it was the middle of summer, the windows began to fog up, and outside, the world looked strange, distorted. The headlights didn't reveal the road, only a thick, endless darkness. When Carlos went to ask the driver where they were, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the rearview mirror. The driver's skin was pale like wax, and his eyes were nothing but black pits. The disappearance. Terrified, Carlos shouted for the bus to stop. Other passengers joined in, pounding on the doors, crying, tried to force open a window. But no matter how hard she pushed, it wouldn't budge. Another man slammed on the emergency exit, locked tight. The engine roared louder, as if the bus wasn't driving on asphalt anymore, but gliding into some void. The next morning, none of the passengers returned home. Their families reported them missing, but investigators had no leads. The bus wasn't found. No driver, no bodies, nothing. Only Carlos's cousin insists that Carlos called in the middle of the night, his voice trembling, whispering only one thing before the line cut. We're not on the road anymore. Modern sightings. Even today, stories surface. Truck drivers on Mexico's highways claim they've seen a ghostly bus pass them at night. Its windows dark, no passengers inside, the number plates untraceable. Some swear they heard faint screams coming from inside as it sped by. Locals say that if you're ever traveling late at night, you should never board a nearly empty bus. Look closely at the driver. If his eyes look too dark, too empty, get off. Because if you don't, you might find yourself on a journey that has no destination. The legend of El Camión de la Muerte isn't just folklore. It's a reminder that not every road leads back home. Some roads are traps, waiting to swallow the living whole. And the worst part, people still vanish every year in Mexico under unexplained circumstances. Often while traveling at night, authorities blame robberies, accidents, cartels. But locals know better. They know some of those travelers boarded the bus that never stops. They say when you travel, the hotel you choose can be the difference between comfort and danger. But in Japan, there's a legend so disturbing that even locals avoid speaking of it. It's the story of room 428, the room that doesn't exist. Tourists arriving in Tokyo often stay in budget hotels near Shinjuku. Many claim that when they ask for a room late at night, they're given room 428, a number that doesn't appear on the booking sheet. Staff members never mention it, but they hand over the key anyway with a blank look in their eyes. Guests describe walking down long, dimly lit hallways, passing numbered doors that feel wrong. When they finally reach room 428, they notice something strange. The walls feel too close, the lighting flickers, and the number plate looks as if it's been screwed in recently, covering another number underneath. Inside, the room is unnaturally cold, even in the heat of summer. The air smells faintly of mildew, and the television turns on by itself at exactly 3:15 a.m. No matter how many times you unplug it, some travelers report hearing soft whispers in Japanese, repeating the same words over and over again. Anata Washington Koko and I Arubeki Duanai. You should not be here. Others describe waking up to find dark handprints smeared across the walls, though no one else was in the room, and in the bathroom mirror. Sometimes a pale figure of a woman with black, stringy hair appears, standing directly behind the guest, only to vanish when they turn around. But the most horrifying part, guests who check into room 428 often find that when they try to leave the next morning, the door won't open. No matter how hard they twist the knob, no matter how much they scream, the hallway outside is gone. Some claim they were trapped for hours, until suddenly the door swings open on its own. When they stumble out into the corridor, room 428 is no longer there. The wall is smooth blank, as if no door had ever existed. Locals whisper that room 428 was sealed decades ago, after a young woman was brutally murdered there by a jealous lover. The hotel bricked over the entrance and erased it from their records. But sometimes, late at night, the room returns, pulling unlucky travelers inside like a trap. Many of those who survived refuse to speak of it again, and those who disappeared, their luggage remains at the front desk, their passports unclaimed. The staff simply shrugs and says they must have checked out. So, if you ever find yourself in Tokyo, tired, desperate for a bed, and the receptionist hands you a key marked 428, do not take it, because once you step inside, the room may never let you leave. And this is just one of the countless horror legends around the world. Some say it's only folklore. Others believe it's a doorway to something we're not supposed to see. Tell me in the comments, would you dare stay in room 428 if it really existed? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because in our next episode, we'll dive deeper into witchcraft.